the live stream, I'll just get everyone at the table first. Okay, if everyone can take their seats. So what I've done, sorry, and it's just taken a little bit longer, just to clarify the difference between this resolution and the previous resolution, because obviously the previous resolution stands if this one fails, and so therefore, or isn't, or if there's another draw, you know, if it's 6-6, then and that's always the risk when people are absent from the meetings, yeah, but yeah. So what I'm just explaining, Sam, that what we're going to do is just to make it clear that the existing resolution is the one that stands if the current resolution doesn't. And the existing resolution, though, did delegate the authority for the decision making to yourself and to the Deputy Mayor, or the Chair and the Deputy Chair of Finance and Performance, so that we could have a so that the provisions could be agreed to in relation to Clause 2A of the original resolution, which was the loan being secured or guaranteed on terms and conditions acceptable to the council, so that the loan will be repaid on or before the term of the loan expires. And so I want to take the number E, which is where the first ranking general security agreement or first ranking specific security agreement over the pavilion and lights for 1.5 million in favour of the council is another option, because that's what you quite rightly brought back to us to authorise you to sign off on, and so that will be the nature of the discussion. So I'm just getting that wording kind of sorted out, and I do apologise. I hadn't realised that there was and probably I would have managed things slightly differently if I'd kind of been aware that was the nature of the issue that we would be debating today. So we're just working on that, but in the meantime, I'm just going to get John to complete answering questions, because there are a number of questions I think I certainly have, because I suspect that there might be a number of risks and issues that staff would like to bring to our attention before we proceed. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Leanne. As I said earlier, the reports are written in a traditional risk management framework. The residual assessment of the risk of ultimately non-repayment is either very low or low. One of the pieces of emerging information that wasn't available to the Finance and Performance Committee on the 5th of March was the fact that when looking at the probability of non-repayment, the Trust has raised a total of $1.5 million as of this point, and an additional $250,000 was provisionally approved through a philanthropic organisation on March the 9th, Monday. The Trust also advised that to get the project to this point, they have raised and spent $364,000 in order to do this. So officers looked at the track record of the Trust and what they've done previously, and we looked at the progress to date. We looked at the time in which the Trust got certainty on whether they would be able to install lights, which was immediately pre-Christmas, and have reached the conclusion that we certainly have a high degree of confidence that they will be able to repay. And I said there's a tool which you've probably all read in the redacted version of the report, which is like a bit of an insurance policy. If the trust do fall short, there may be a way forward. So in terms of overall risk to the council, it's low or very low. It would be very low if the security were a guarantee, but we know that that is highly unlikely. But nevertheless, it's a reasonably secure investment from our assessment. And I do have a trust member here. If any councillors have got questions that they feel better answered by a trust member and myself, I'd be happy to take the direction from you, Leanne, to invite Lee to the table.
Well, we were going to allow Mr Robinson to come to the table if we'd gone into PX, but I mean, it's over to you. If you, Mr Robinson, if you'd like to come forward, you'd be more than welcome to answer councillors' questions. I guess perhaps if I start that, just in terms of, reputation, the members of the trust, and yourself being one of them, I mean, I guess you're putting your reputation on the line to ask us for a loan. If you were if we're ever put in a position of not being able to repay, that obviously would be an enormous challenge to every single member of the trust.
We regard ourselves as directors.
Yep.
We can't and wouldn't go into arrangements that we didn't believe we could satisfy, and that's a director's obligation at law. We have a retired High Court judge on our trust. Every one of us are business people. We're concerned about reputation, but we're also concerned about performance and complying with obligations. I mean, we have raised, since 2015, over $15 million. We have an unencumbered pavilion. The Hagley Sports Centre is simply secured with the loan that was bought. It was bought with, and that we are told will be forgiven in terms of a bequest. We don't have any debt. We complied with the Earthquake Appeal Authority's requirements for community use, and that loan was then forgiven. So we're very confident we wouldn't be here raising money in an environment where we didn't think we could meet the repayments. It is less than half of the cost of the lights. We have in 3 months raised $1.5 million by way of donations, and those donations are still being received. And the rest of the funding we have earmarked. So our concern is, after a very high-powered approach, or should I say a launch yesterday at the Basin Reserve by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Sport, that Christchurch was lauded for being able to host this final because they regard it as a magnificent ground. And we need to sign contracts by the end of this month to secure the time frames required to put those lights in for that final.
So thank you for that. That's very helpful. But you do understand that councillors are perfectly entitled to ask questions.
Absolutely.
In relation to
Absolutely.
Their sense of comfort and security that they want to then offer the ratepayers. In terms of this.
Absolutely. And look, I'm a lawyer. I deal with loan conditions every day of the week. I understand the position. I'm just concerned that we don't get this across the line. Christchurch will suffer, and we're here to make sure this facility works.
Yeah. All right. Question, Andrew and Jake.
Thank you. I'm keen to continue the line of questioning that I started a little while ago around the nature of the security arrangements. And clearly one of the things that we looked at was a general security arrangement over all of the assets of the trust. And obviously, acknowledging what you've just told us about your view of your ability to raise funds and your ability to repay and so on, but realising that our role as councillors is to get the best security arrangements that we can to the satisfaction of ourselves and to protect ratepayers essentially. So the general security agreement is out of the question because of the particular arrangements you've got with this bequest on the Horticultural Society.
No, Andrew, no. The only issue with the general security agreement is it would be subject to the specific charge only over the horticultural hall, the old horticultural hall, which is $700,000.
Okay, so if I then approach this the way I would approach any other, commercial negotiation, or the way that you would look at these sort of things normally, the value of the Horticultural Society building, and the minus that 700,000, and the value of all of the trust's other assets, including the lighting towers once they're built and the pavilion and so on. If we had a GSA over all of that, what would be the value of the assets that we had the GSA over?
So the value of the pavilion insured for $10.5 million.
You?
The cost value of the lights is $4.5 million, so there's $15 million. And, you could have a specific charge over those assets. There's no other borrowing. A general security agreement at law is basically a charge over all of the trust's assets, money in the bank,
Yep.
creditors, debtors and everything else. So we don't have any other competing charges, so there's no reason we couldn't give a specific security agreement over the assets, being the lights and the pavilion, and we could have a general security agreement over the rest of the trust's assets. The only thing that is to put to one side outside of that is that loan of $700,000, which we are told will be forgiven, but sits against the Hagley Sports Centre.
Which is understood. So I'm wondering whether that then leads to a position where we strengthen clause 2E. If you're happy with the GSA, then I can't see any reason why we wouldn't want to put a GSA in place.
We would expect
I understood from the previous answer I had that wasn't going to be possible because of that additional interest in the Horticultural Society building, but it sounds as though you would be comfortable with that.
I was keen to clarify that. So, we would expect to provide security, and that's what's available.
Yeah, so if we approved this subject to a GSA, realising that there's that matter with the Horticultural Society building that you needed to resolve, and there's that matter that sits there, that would be stronger than, from our point of view, the specific security agreement over just the pavilion and the lights.
Well, you could have both.
So we just change or to and.
You could have specific security agreement over the pavilion and the lights, and a general security agreement over all the trust assets.
Yeah, so if we just changed or to and, we would have achieved that, I think. So Canterbury Cricket, so 2E, a first-ranking general security agreement and a first-ranking specific security. If that would be acceptable to you, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't do that.
And it's okay. I'm going to show you in a minute the work that has been prepared.
All right, so if the sentiment I'm expressing can be picked up, yep, that's brilliant. All right, thank you.
Just a question for you, Madam Chair. So I just wasn't clear on what happens if this fails. Are you saying that it will go back, the original resolution will stand, and therefore it'll be a decision between Councillor McDonald and Turner solely to decide whether the... Yep.
Thank you, and thanks for coming in again. I just want to get a bit of a feel for, so obviously with the change in the underwrite from last week, has that had any implications for your Rata Foundation loans? Have you been in touch with them?
Yes, I have. So if I can go back a step, we sought some general support from Crown, as we're doing from the council, and there was never anything put in writing about an underwrite. It was a discussion, as you do, and this thing has changed by the day in terms of what's maybe available and may not be. And as a result of those discussions over 3 or 4 weeks, we were given the letter signed by the Honourable Woods and Grant Robertson that I think you might have seen. And we took that forward. So, and we understood, and I spoke to Minister Robertson yesterday, that the process in terms of time was difficult for anything stronger than that because of Treasury requirements and getting it through those Treasury regulations in that time.
So how does that, it might be a question for John, I mean, how does that reconcile to what we were told last week, which was that there was a guarantee on its way?
Well, I think we were hopeful it was on its way. I mean, but we never got, we were told that they were trying to provide something of certainty, and it was a question of what the degree of that certainty was.
And from my part of that, Councillor MacDonald, that lack of certainty was the resulting in the condition that there were terms and conditions acceptable to the council. So because it wasn't available at the time, it was subject to rather than it's here already.
So just one more, Leanne, if that's okay. So just in terms of that rata stuff,
Yeah.
has that changed or
No, so
are they able to same?
that was a condition of their loan. I went back yesterday or the day before and changed the condition to exactly the same wording as your condition on security and guarantee arrangements satisfactory to yourself,
Okay.
to rata.
Yep.
They have said that's acceptable, so I need now to go back to them to work out what their security arrangements are.
Right, okay. So what would happen if they wanted first dibs as well?
Well, and I discussed this with John previously. What you would do is you could provide a security agreement for the total of $2 million. So your security would be as to 1.5, and rata would be as to 0.5.
Thank you. Sarah? Yanni?
I was just interested to understand, I guess, in comparison to previous like World Cup type events that we've had, where we've seen like FIFA, for example, putting money in, or maybe New Zealand football. So can you just give me some sense of what support ICC and New Zealand Cricket have provided to facilities to host the event?
So yeah, I mean, I've acted for New Zealand Cricket since 1990. I no longer act for them because they've gone to Auckland, but
Right.
they've never put money into facilities. They've always been the operating entity and owned the game.
Right.
They've never owned facilities. They don't put money into facilities. They want local authorities and private individuals to provide facilities they can operate off, because their money is in the game, it's in the Players Association, it's in all sorts of areas, but they do not and never have funded facilities.
So I presume from these type of events they get quite a big windfall, which then goes back towards.
Well, their main income is not from venues. Ticket revenue is it's a minor part of their revenue comes from television
TV rights.
rights. And I mean, I don't know if I'm at liberty to disclose them, but there's a big numbers in terms of being able to televise games from New Zealand, particularly into the Asian continent.
So effectively, unlike other codes, each regional association has to provide the facility as part of the bid to get the tournament?
Yes, and that's
And it's-
usually done through the council and, in our case, V-Base and Christchurch NZ. So the 5 parties involved with Hagley put a proposal to New Zealand Cricket to bid for the game.
Yeah. And just excuse my ignorance, but I'm just trying to understand why the funding wasn't sorted out as part of that bid, and why is it coming to us now? Like it's sort of after, pretty
Well,
much.
we didn't have consent till the 23rd of December.
Right.
When it looked like there were favourable indications both from the councillors to the variation of the lease and to the Regenerate application, which wasn't granted until the 23rd of December, we started to make some inroads into fundraising about a month before. I mean, we couldn't do anything. There was no point in trying to raise money if we didn't know we were going to get the consent. Right. So we had a very short time frame. And now we're on a program which we've provided to the ICC, and they will be here in April, and they will inspect Hagley and they'll want to know that we're on track to ensure that they're comfortable with the games that have been allocated. So time has become critical, not only in respect of the funding arrangements and timetable, but in terms of the construction timetable.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? I'm just going to flick the resolution across. So I'll run through it with you. What it essentially does is, one, it receives this report. Two, it notes the decision of the Finance and Performance Committee on the 5th of March. So it just basically summarises what was the position that was adopted by Finance and Performance. So I won't go through all of that because you'll all know that from last week. And then resolves that the granting of the loan to the Canterbury Cricket Trust is also conditional on, and then it's picking up this one, the Canterbury Cricket Trust providing a charge by way of a first ranking general security agreement and a first ranking specific security agreement over the pavilion and lights for 1.5 million in favour of the council or equivalent instrument, and then delegates authority to the head of community support, governance and partnerships to make necessary arrangements to implement this resolution. So this is now explicitly calling out the providing a charge. This was the one thing that was different from the resolution essentially that we passed last time, which was making it secured on guaranteed on terms and conditions acceptable to the council. So but I guess the question that I want to ask is that if this is not carried, then does it put at risk losing everything?
Well, I think, Madam Chair, if we're back to where we were last week, we've then got to we've got to do some more fast footwork to try and get a guarantee. That's pretty difficult in a short frame of time. I mean, I guess from where I sit as a solicitor, we know the owner of an entity gives a charge, and you always take a gamble that that person can pay on the expiry date. We don't want to be in a position not to pay that loan, and if we have surplus funds that come through during the term of the loan, we will apply it in reduction.
Sorry, I'm just getting advice as to whether that then. I'm assuming that all of the provisions above are accepted, remain
Yeah.
except for that
That's
this.
fine then, 'cause you've got it above.
So that So actually, number 3 should read resolves that the that basically it's E is 1E or whatever it was in the original one is replaced with that one. 1E is replaced with that one.
2E.
I mean, essentially, it's all the conditions, but it's the 1E is changed.
Yeah. 2E.
Yeah.
Last
But so, but the impact of that would be to take it back to the.
That's the one that's it.
Can I just say that one of the things that helped me last time was the in our original in PX that's currently redacted was 2F. Sorry? 2F in the which is now redacted in the the version's going to be public. It's okay. I mean, I'm happy with that.
We'll forget this. I mean,
No, don't.
No,
It's- you
I'm
nearly there.
happy with that. I'll just, yeah. That would be helpful.
So
Is that too early?
this is helpful. So Leah's happy to respond to, well, to talk in generic terms,
Fundraising
general terms,
strategy.
be aware of the redacted section of the
So
paper.
as an added comfort to us, and I hope for the council, we have a party relationship with Canterbury Cricket, which is the operating entity for cricket in Canterbury. Now, we've talked at length, and they have provided us agreement in principle that contributions from the cricket family will be considered seriously and promulgated as a matter of process immediately. So that contribution, or those contributions, if you like, need to go through a process. They need to go through a process from a constituent's perspective to discuss with various bodies. So we can't go out there and say publicly this is what's going to happen, because the constituents haven't had a chance to talk about and debate about it. But in principle, 2/3 of this loan is hoped to be raised through that process. But it will take 3 months to have meetings, talk about it, consult and so on. But in principle, that has been agreed unequivocally. It is an appropriate process to go through as part of raising the money.
Jake.
Thanks, Lee. Hey, is the player levy still on the table?
Well, I mentioned the word contribution. I think
That's the whole point, it was ready.
We made it public.
Can I
We made
just
it public.
No, it's redacted.
Can I just remind councillors? I cannot.
Can I help? Can I help? Look, I think it's very common in fundraising circles around sports organisations to look at possible levies. Now, I don't want to use that word in the sense that this will be imposed. One of the things we have discussed is that we might need to look at some levies across the cricket family. And I need to say that openly. We haven't discussed it with our constituents. It's something that will require a bit of debate, but I don't want people picking up the paper tomorrow and saying, oh, we're going to be levied this, that and the rest of it, because we haven't made that decision. We want to discuss it with our constituents.
Thank you. All right, so I think we've got a way forward here. So we've got notes the decision of the Finance and Performance Committee. We resolve that the granting of the loan is conditional on securing the prepaying of the risk. Hang on.
I could foreshadow a motion.
Thank you. These are additional conditions. So the granting of the loan is also conditional on Canterbury Cricket Trust prepaying the equivalent of 2 years' interest upon the drawdown of the loan, the Canterbury Cricket Trust agreeing to the repayment, the Canterbury Cricket Trust providing a charge by way of a first-ranking general security agreement and a first-ranking specific security agreement, the Trust providing details of their fundraising strategy and an annual report on progress, and the Trust providing a letter to Council explicitly stating that the Trust will not subsequently seek that any portion of the loan be converted to a grant or written off. And we delegate authority to the Head of Community Support, Governance and Partnerships to make necessary arrangements to implement this resolution. Right, so I'm happy to move that motion. Do I have a seconder for it? Sarah. So I'll open it up for debate.
Questions on what you're moving there.
Yep.
So what you're moving there is essentially what we had last week with a few additions, given some new information where we find ourselves now. If you're still comfortable with how it stood last week, then you'd essentially still vote against this.
Yeah,
So the decision would still
That's
stand
right.
from last week.
But it would still mean that Andrew and Sam would have to sign off on something where they haven't been given direction to sign off on it, and they
I
don't
think
feel
the direction,
comfortable.
well, that direction might come depending on
Yeah.
how the vote goes.
no,
Yeah.
but then if the vote, I mean, it doesn't, this solves the problem in terms of that.
It's just clarifying what we see as terms and
No, this
conditions suitable.
doesn't delegate it back to, well, no, it does delegate it back to.
No, this changes the delegation to sign off.
No, I know, but if it's voted down is the question that we're being asked. What happens if it's voted down?
If this loses today,
It'll
you've still
revert.
got the resolution from last week.
Which means that
Delegated
it's delegated to Sam and Andrew, and they can only sign it off on the guarantee that's acceptable.
Oh, security or guarantee.
Security or
Which in
guarantee.
the security
Right.
that we're talking about now.
Okay, so that's the situation.
Would we,
So my question then, I guess, is, I'm sorry, Andrew, is then you're kind of getting into semantics a little bit here, because the security/guarantee, from my perspective, was actually the guarantee that was important to me. So where you sort of weight that,
That's
I
the
guess,
debate,
is...
though. That's debate rather than process.
That's the debate, so.
Could,
comfortable.
you know, could we foreshadow today, though, and just clarification, going out for that third-party underwrite? Again.
Who's we?
Council.
No, I said we. Could we foreshadow, being me?
No, but we. Who goes out for a third party
No,
underwrite?
Okay, maybe I'm not clear. Sorry, Liam. What I mean is the idea that we wouldn't support this today, but as a backup, instead of reverting back to the other one, we go out and say that we wouldn't approve the loan, and that they would actually need to go and get that third-party underwrite, like we were led to believe last
That's
week.
the effect of voting this down, because it would still mean that you would have to sign off on the other one. If that's what you're comfortable with, then that's
Yeah.
the rule
Okay,
that you're
yeah,
comfortable
that's
with.
great. That's
no,
cleared it
that's
up.
not the
Sorry.
same. 'Cause
You've kind of
delegating.
answered two questions in
Yeah.
one then, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's
fine if
effectively
that's.
what it is.
Yep.
That would be, yeah, you make.
Well, no, hold on. I want to clarify that. This is actually really, really important.
It
It
is,
feels like something's being pushed through here.
I
There's a
beg your
huge
pardon,
difference.
We have brought this into the public arena from a PX discussion last week, specifically for the purpose of having this debate in public.
But you're
So-
not offering an opportunity to rescind the original resolution from last week, which
could
is
foreshadow
should
that.
be an
Somebody
option.
But we
foreshadow
which is
passed the
different.
resolution last week. If you want to move,
The circumstances are completely
you
different.
can just vote against it.
No, because
And-
then we
and-
just get back to where we were last week. So there's no option
No,
to actually
the
vote
point
against
is
it.
that the decision last week was made by the Finance and Performance Committee. They have come to us, because this has come to us as the two that had the delegation. They said they couldn't exercise the delegation they felt, given the circumstances. That has come back for a public debate. So I kind of reject the notion that this is being rushed through. We discussed it at Finance and Performance last week. This is not a decision, this wasn't a decision of the council, it was a decision of Finance and Performance. So we don't have the authority to revoke a decision of another committee. We don't. So all I'm saying is that what we should do is that if you agree with this, vote for it. If you don't agree with it, vote against it.
So
And
can I
that's what we
clarify?
have to debate.
Can I clarify? You're saying there is no option to decline this today.
Yes, there is. You can vote against it.
And then Sam and Andrew will decline. Sam
Sorry,
will decline
question.
for you.
So if this does not pass and it goes back to the last resolution, there potentially could be a deadlock between two councillors. And I'm just wondering if we should do a foreshadowed motion to actually include the mayor as a third person to make sure we don't have a stalemate if it did get lost today.
No way.
or whether
No, we can't, what you would have to do is you would have to, because this is either voted up or down. We can't amend a resolution of another committee.
could we not revoke
You
the
can-
delegation?
You can, no, we can't. It was given by the Finance and Performance Committee.
Council can't
So all I'm
revoke a
saying
decision
is
of another
that,
committee.
that sometimes it's more helpful to have the technical details worked out in an environment that is not necessarily being live streamed, but there we go. So what we need to do is we need to have the debate on this and put it to a vote. And it is unfortunate. You can foreshadow a motion that you would like to yeah, but, I mean, it will come down to the same result anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I just think we just get on with it, is my suggestion. So, right, so I'm going to...
So can we just get some legal advice on that last matter? Because if it is possible for council to remove the delegation, given that this is appearing to be contentious, I certainly would rather that we had an extraordinary meeting of council where we made a decision on a future situation, if this is voted down today, rather than been left in exactly the same situation we were in 2 days ago, where I didn't feel that I could exercise the delegation in the way that council had anticipated that I would. If there's a way of resolving that, I think that would result in us being able to deal with any future situation, if we had the opportunity to, more quickly and more effectively than Sam and I quite possibly ending up back in the same situation that we were in earlier this week.
Ian, I think that, I mean, the issue for me is that Finance and Performance made the decision with the delegation and we can't change it.
No.
But...
Can I just...
No, I was just asking the question as well.
You could in fact revoke that delegation.
Yeah, it would be a new resolution.
And yes, but you'd have to come up with a new resolution to replace it.
Yeah, but it would have to pass. I mean, you know, I think we're wasting time now at this point.
I think we're getting to a point where these procedural issues are getting quite intricate, detailed, and I wouldn't like us to make a decision that will...
Yeah.
But if the situation we get to, if this does not pass, is unworkable, now's the time to sort that out through a foreshadowed resolution.
So I think that...
excuse me, if
let
it
Mike
is...
foreshadow the motion, I think it'll pass. So let Mike foreshadow one just in case.
If it doesn't pass, the previous resolution stands.
Yep.
If you want to then organise for an extraordinary meeting to sort this out and get it right,
Got another way forward.
you could do it that way.
We could.
Mike, foreshadow your motion.
Otherwise,
So the foreshadowed
motion, I think that's better.
the foreshadowed motion is that
to
we
add
would
you to the
is
delegated
to
list.
is to delegate
Yes.
this decision. So the alternative is, rather than this decision being made, is to delegate the original option. All right. Well, you work out the wording, but we're going to have the debate. So, or can somebody work out the wording for us?
Yeah. So Mike's one on just adding
Well, I just think
the mayor
it goes
to the...
back to the original delegation, but including yourself in that as well.
Yeah.
But how? Well, we need
It's a
some
new
help with the
resolution.
wording of a resolution. So do people understand that the foreshadowed, if this doesn't carry, that the foreshadowed motion is that the delegation is exercised
Through the chair, vice chair and mayor.
not, well, by the chair
Deputy Chair
and the
and the mayor.
Deputy Chair of Finance and Performance and the Mayor. Right, okay.
Doesn't this resolution just add those?
Right, all right. So I'll open up the debate. Oh, well, I'll open up the debate then. I didn't speak in the debate last week because I felt that it was important that it was a matter that was in front of the Finance and Performance Committee, the members who contributed to the debate, and there wasn't unanimity around the table. I felt contributed in a pretty fair and reasonable way, and I thought that the matter was going to conclude well, and it did conclude well with an agreement reached as to how the matter would be addressed. I think that what has happened since, and look, we see it all the time, and you know, having been a cabinet minister, I know what it's like when something unexpected happens. And you know, the impact of coronavirus on the country is having a financial impact as well. It's not just the well-being aspect in terms of people's concerns, and you know, sometimes you know, that they are amplified you know, through through the situation that they see developing throughout the world. But it would be wrong for the government not to take a precautionary approach in this environment. So I'm actually very happy that we have got a cricket trust that is made up of people of good reputation, of sound business judgment, with professional backgrounds that I think we can absolutely rely on. And I know that they are putting it on the line so that we can achieve the world-class cricket status that our pavilion deserves. People can argue to and fro around the issue of the location of the pavilion, but that decision was made, and all of the decisions were made in that regard. And finally, we ended up with what I think is one of the best places in the world to be showcasing our city and to be showcasing our country. And I was really proud to hear our name announced as part of their big announcements yesterday. I want us to be able to provide security to the Cricket Trust. I don't believe that we're playing with risk here. As we've heard from staff, the risk is low. The benefits are extremely high, and I think that we just need to tide them over, as the whole country is doing, in an environment of uncertainty. So I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate the Trust for all that they've done so far, and wish them all the best. Sam.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I won't be supporting what's up there today. In my view, this is really simple. The reality is we were led to believe last week that there was a government guarantee coming, and I can say government now because it's been mentioned by Lee and the team. The reality is that has been pulled, and we publicly said last week we have a duty to protect the ratepayer. From my point of view, I said this was a risk-free loan, and I just don't think it is now. So look, I would be far more comfortable if the government had followed through on that. I think it would be entirely appropriate. I mean, let's be real about it. It's a rounding error for them, and I completely understand what Leanne's saying about the coronavirus, but that hasn't just changed in 4 days. So the reality is, if we had comfort before Thursday, quite frankly, we should still have that now. So in my view, I think if this fails, I'd be far more comfortable coming back to Andrew, Leanne and myself to sign off if we can get some form of guarantee in place. But, we have a duty to protect the ratepayer, and I think there's been a sequence of events here that unfortunately have not given me the highest level of confidence that we would ordinarily expect. So I can't support it as it is.
Sarah and Jake.
Kia ora, thank you. The reality is that when we voted on this at Finance and Performance, we voted for a resolution that talked about guarantee or security. And it was very clear from the papers at the time that nothing was guaranteed with a guarantee, that it was a potential. And we had a resolution which said that we were fine with a security instead. So actually I'm really a bit grumpy that this has even come back to us, because as council we gave direction, it was in the resolution, and people voted on that at the time. I think that handing this decision on again to the same people is abdicating our responsibility, and I think that we owe it to the public who have been through so much as a city not to waste all of the money that everyone's already spent on this whole process, which is not insubstantial, and to cut our noses off to spite our face, and not have this game. I think that council will look silly, and that it's doing a disservice to our city to play politics with it. And I think that we need to vote for this now. We need to just get on with it, and not delay.
Jake.
Look, I just wanted to say I'm not against the lights. I'm not against cricket, and however, what I can't support is this loan. I want to remind councillors that CCC isn't a bank. They're welcome to go to a bank if they'd like, But based on the quality of the debate here today, I would suggest that if we were a bank, we'd be going under. We need to remember that this is not our money, this is ratepayers' money, and we shouldn't be so fast and loose with it. I also think questions have to be asked about the securities that have been put up. Can we recover them? How come we were given a letter that suggested there would be a government underwrite when there wasn't? I think Councillor MacDonald alluded to that but got one point wrong when he suggested that government have pulled this out when really I think it's an overzealous cricket trust. And although the reputations of that trust, of the people on that trust are really, really good, I don't think that's enough to risk $1.5 million.
Anyone else? Yeah, Andrew and Melanie.
My focus on this has always been around the security around the guarantee. And in many ways, it was the view that Sam and I took of the situation we were faced with earlier this week when we were not signing off on the guarantee that I think, expected that we would see, and that council, we had the debate last week in the context of there was a particular third-party guarantee that really was seen to be a possibility or a probability. The environment, in my view, had changed. We spent a lot of time last week talking about the guarantee, expecting that a guarantee would be in place, so that a number of the other matters that we've explored in more depth today were perhaps less top of mind last week as they are at the moment. I came into this meeting today with a view that maybe there was an alternative guarantee that was in the process of being procured or could be procured. I came into this meeting today thinking that maybe the Cricket Trust were looking at council as an easy option to get this funding through in this way, and there were other alternatives. Questions have been asked in this meeting that have made me realise, and the way that they've been answered has made me realise very clearly, first of all, that with, and I'm pleased that my suggestions were picked up, a general security agreement over all of the assets of the trust, which we've heard have got a value of $15 million. We've heard that there's good insurance in place. We've heard that that would include the cash that the trust has got as well. And we've had answers to other questions that I think give us a higher level of confidence than perhaps some of us would have had previously. That leaves me in a position where, given the need for protecting ratepayers, from cost and from risk, with $15 million worth of assets to cover a $1.5 million loan and a number of other matters that play into that space positively as well, I believe that that gives us the level of security, the level of guarantee that we need to proceed with this. We also need to look at the alternative. I think what we've also heard today is that this event, the final of the Women's Cricket World Cup, so this is not only a city event, not only a regional event, not only a national event, this is an international event which is going to put this city on the world stage, which in terms of city building, in terms of building city image, in terms of building our reputation, in terms of building the confidence that other event promoters will have in bringing content to Christchurch in future, and in the context of the significant investments that we're making into the multi-use arena that we've already put into the Metro Sports facility, that we've already put into Ngāpuna. We've got the convention centre being built. What we're looking for all these world-class facilities is content. We cannot, given the situation that we're in today, in my view, turn down a world-class piece of content which is already in the bag. So I find it very difficult not to support this. I think we just need to raise our ambitions and get on with it.
Thank you. Melanie.
Thank you. So last week it was when we had the finance and performance meeting, I voted against this, and that's because I could see that the government underwrite, we didn't have a guarantee on it, and I just didn't see it going ahead. I support the Canterbury Cricket Trust, and I was the chair of the hearing panel that, when we agreed or recommended to council that we grant the lease for the loan on the lights. However, we as a council need a guarantee of repayment, and I just can't see that. And in the bigger picture, which I haven't talked about before, but the purpose of the lights is to televise these games overseas. Now, there's benefits for Christchurch, obviously, with the economy. There's benefits in terms of making Christchurch an international place for sport and an international city. However, it's the ICC that benefit from the income from these games, as far as I can understand it. So really, that's about a sporting business asking for a loan from a council to support them. That's how I see it. So I can't support that. But if there is if we can get a guarantee, then I would consider supporting it if we could get it in writing.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll just close off. Yeah, Jamie? Oh, I thought you'd spoken. No. Question that was. Jamie.
Right, thanks.
James.
Look, I don't think that I'm seeing anyone necessarily playing politics here. All I'm hearing is about protection of the ratepayer. I think largely we all agree what success looks like. But what I find particularly disturbing around this is that we got to a place that everyone was by majority comfortable with, and this is largely will change quite considerably over a space of a few days, when in real terms very little should have changed. Going back to the previous resolution, and if that still stands, it is that if the guarantee exists, then everything else still stands. So with the guarantee, it can be signed off. A fire sale of Stadia lights is not the security that I got any comfort from. The underwrite is the security. So the third party, or we can say it now, the Crown, reneging at the 11th hour on what we had been led to believe had been agreed in good faith is now no longer the case, could potentially derail everything. And I find that extraordinary. The Cricket Trust have done their part, and they've done an extraordinary job. As a council, I think we've done our part. We've put out all the stops to ensure Hagley Oval can be made fully functional and that it can play its part in hosting the Women's Cricket World Cup. That's fantastic for Christchurch. The one caveat that we had was that in doing so, our ratepayers were protected. And we had, by all assurances, a third party guaranteeing that. And I think that's fair and appropriate. So I think it is really, really simple. If the third party guarantee exists, like we were led to believe that was forthcoming, then the loan to the full amount exists. All it comes down to is the third party now no longer doing what they said they were going to do. And you can't, let's be really honest, you cannot tell me that $1.5 million in terms of a nation's treasury makes any difference to anything. You cannot tell me this is about coronavirus. They either do what they said they were going to do, or they don't. So this really hangs in the balance. We have done everything we could have done, and the Trust has done everything they could have done.
A point of order must be heard immediately.
Sorry. Have you finished?
The government have not...
No, I'm sorry. That's not a point of order.
Well,
it's a point of debate. I'm sorry, it's a point of debate.
Oh, okay.
So look, all I'll say is that by all intents and purposes, we were led to believe that a government guarantee was forthcoming, and I was completely comfortable with that, because with that, the ratepayer is protected and we get all the benefits. That now changing, in my view, changes everything. But if the underwrite can still exist, then I can't see why anything from the council needs to change, so I won't be supporting it.
Mike.
Thank you, and I respectfully disagree with a lot of what you said, James. This is very obviously quite a political debate, and appears to be motivated more at central government level than local, which is really concerning when actually we right now have the opportunity to have the pinnacle event in world women's cricket, and people are ready to jeopardise that for some political point scoring. So I can see around this table that some councillors are getting played, and it's actually shocking, and I'm astounded at where we're going and the embarrassment this will cause to our city. We were in a committee meeting last week where we clearly put in the resolution that one of the conditions was on security or guarantee. We now have new information around the guarantee, so this is a change of resolutions which really clearly states around the security, which I'm absolutely happy with. We know from having an event like this in Christchurch, the actual economic outcomes from it and social outcomes from it is going to be huge for our city, and I'm absolutely astounded by some of the councillors that can't see that.
Any further? Jimmy?
It's quite difficult to make a decision, but last week, the Finance and Performance Committee, the AGs approved this one. but still have a condition, particularly is consider the loan, $1.5 million being secured and guaranteed. And also we particular emphasize should be provided by third party underwrite the guarantee. But today the situation is a difference. But as a council mayor, we should be a stewardship, take those the repair money more prudent, in a prudent way. So for me, it's because not complying with this condition. You will mention they have a $50 million, the capital in that area. If they too wider, third party cannot, particular governance cannot, underwriting or guarantee. So today, probably. So I'm not supporting this one.
So I'll wrap up the debate then. I think that it is really important to focus on the issue, and that is that last week we made a decision as another committee in relation to the what was acceptable in terms of securing the interests of our ratepayers. We've heard from a member of the trust, we've heard from our own staff that they are satisfied that from our own staff that they are satisfied that the risk is low. And the risk is low to our ratepayers and our loans. We're not being asked for a grant, we've been asked for a loan. And I think it's important to remember that. The second thing is that by way of a charge of a first ranking general security agreement and a first ranking specific security agreement over the trust's assets, which includes money in the bank. As we've heard, there's fundraising going on. They couldn't start the fundraising until they had the agreement through to proceed to this track. We're now on the brink of it. Yes, we can leave it to the trust to provide a guarantee that they can't provide within, a couple of days, matter of days, or we can stand by the essence of our agreement, which is to secure the interests of our ratepayers while ensuring that this world-class facility is able to be used to its best extent. I don't think that I mean, it's kind of become clear to me what's really been going on here today, and it is a shame that it has come to that. But this offers us a way forward. It gives security for ratepayers. I think councillors should understand this. Ratepayers are looked after with this, and if we can support the resolution today, it enables the games to go ahead in a way with security, and we will ensure that the trust is able to get it back. So, on that, I will not bother calling the motion. I will get a division. Thank you.
Councillor Templeton. Yes. Councillor McClellan.
No.
Councillor McDonald.
No.
Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Chen.
No.
The Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Major.
Yes.
Councillor Goff.
No.
Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Councillor Chu. No. Councillor Turner.
Yes.
The motion's lost 5-6.
Thank you. So now we have a foreshadowed motion from Mike Davidson. And the foreshadowed motion is that we just simply amend the delegation in respect of 2A to include the Mayor, and that the delegation is to the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Finance and Performance Committee and the Mayor. And that's acceptable from a legal point of view? Yes, so that's been moved by Mike, seconded by Sarah. I'll put that motion.
Sarah shouldn't second it.
Hey?
Sarah had seconded
Oh.
the original motion.
Okay, sorry. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Yeah, so we can't change anything in the blue, is that correct? Because I
No.
thought the whole premise was removing the security and leaving it with a guarantee.
The whole point, and this doesn't address it, was around the guarantee. So adding the mayor to it sort of isn't...
No, you, hang on a minute. I actually find that deeply offensive. The council has voted against the wording of the resolution which provides for a form of security. So that is not the form of security that is acceptable to the council. I accept that. So, thank you. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much.
Should we go back into PX now, yeah?
And now I'll move that we go into PX for the reasons set out on the relevant pages of the agenda. And I'll move that, seconded by Andrew, and I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.